You're listening to the Mind Your Own Business podcast, aimed at helping photographers learn how to make the leap from amateur to pro.
Hello, and welcome to the Mind Your Own Business podcast, a joint effort brought to you by Photofocus and Skip Cohen University. This is Shamira Young, and I am joined by my amazing co-host, Skip Cohen. Skip, what's up?
Whoa, you haven't used amazing in a long time.
Capital A,
Thank
amazing.
you, capital A. Well, we have an amazing, all caps, podcast today.
Yes.
And it's going to be a kick. We've got Allison Tyler Jones in the house. And while her core business is family and children's photography, I doubt there's anything she can't photograph. But even more impressive than her skill set as an artist is her pure love for the craft. I want to read something for everybody that comes from her About page that really describes what she's all about. I want you to have art on your walls, art that happens to be your family, images that make your heart skip a beat every time you pass them in your home. I want you to have photographs of your family that, when it's been a particularly tough day, remind you of why you decided to do this whole messy thing called family in the first place. Images that go beyond just a record of the people in your life, images that capture the essence of your unique family, their personalities, the connection between them, and the love that binds you all together, close quote. Now, I love that as an intro and an about page for Allison, because Allison can capture love in a family because of the love she has in her own life, in her own family. But there's one more aspect of today's podcast that gets Shamira and I really excited and makes it even more unique. On Monday, January 17th at Imaging USA, the Mind Your Own Business podcast is going to be live with a panel discussion with 4 unique imaging artists talking about ways to build your business and stop letting the outside world grind you down. Allison is our first guest as we launch a 4-month podcast series leading right up to the event in January, where she'll also be joining us. She's also our first guest today because she didn't let the pandemic crush her business, her creativity, her spirit. In fact, she recently told me her studio is tracking to one of the very best years in their history, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What's Allison doing to keep her business and incredible spirit on top? So, Allison, this is my creative way of saying this is the cue for your lips to move. Welcome to Mind Your Own Business.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here, especially with your attitude and things that you're doing to help photographers get back on top and rebuild, of which, in all honesty, most of them needed the help long before the pandemic.
It's true. It's a tough business that we're in. Can be, for sure.
But definitely worth it, especially when you find creative ways to make it work and to have it be fulfilling, not just for you, but your clients. And Allison, this is so cool. I mean, your website is just from the very first image on the homepage and looking through your portrait galleries and especially your different styles and the fact that you're full service. It's really impressive. And
Thank you.
This is going to be such a juicy conversation as we dive into the nuts and bolts of your business. But first, we do like to kick it off with our favorite first question. Tell us about your background, just how you got started and how you ended up doing what you're doing today.
Well, I was the high school yearbook photo editor, so that's going back a lot. And I just kind of have always had done photography, quote unquote, on the side when I had other businesses. And in 2005, when I had a retail store, I had a scrapbooking store. When we closed that out and sold that off, I thought I need to take 6 months off, and I'll just do photography for 6 months and see what I'm going to do next. And then here we are 16 years later. So I sold digital files for 30 days until my sister actually called me and said, "You've got to come over. I printed the canvas and my whole neighborhood wants you to hire you." So I went over and I looked at the canvas that she'd printed at Costco that was supposed to be a black and white that was purple. And I had a, moment of like, okay, this is never going to happen again, because I really thought, I don't want to sell product. I don't want to have to deal with all of that. I don't want to have to learn what the actual sizes are. And I just decided I can't. I'm too much of a control freak. It has to be perfect. And so I decided right then and there, I'm never selling digital files. I have to see it from beginning to end. And that is what happened. And so here I am. I specialize in children and families, and I have a studio in our downtown Mesa area. And I'm the mother of 7 kids, and most of whom are grown and supposedly functioning human beings. And so all of that has just informed my love of family, my love of kids, and expression, personality, all of that. So that's what I specialize in.
You know,
No, go ahead, Shemaya.
I was going to say, I bet a lot of photographers listening right now, I know definitely me, as you tell the story about the purple, the print that's supposed to be black and white and it turns purple. A lot of us have been there. I've been there. And you're right. It's just it's a not great feeling when this image that you put so much time and effort into, you know, the person gets it printed on their end with the best of intentions and it does not come out right. Yeah, I feel your pain.
Yep.
I know the direction we want to go in for this podcast, but you just hit on something that I didn't realize. As the mom of 7, just spend a minute talking about some of the things that you learned to help you find balance in your life. Because one of the things that's always surprised me, and most photographers don't realize this, and this is long before digital, 50% of the market have always been part-time photographers in the portrait social categories. And this goes back to a study that Kodak did 25 years ago, and I don't believe it's changed at all. You've always had people that had day jobs, you've had moms, you've had dads, you've had moms with children and families. What are some of the things that you did to find that balance?
Well, there isn't no such thing actually as balance. It doesn't. That's a fiction, and you're just always out of balance, and you're out of balance in different areas. And at least that's been my experience. When we're blended, so I have 2 children of my own, and then I married a man that had 5 kids, and so we blended that almost 20 years ago. And both of my children have autism, and his 5 are supposedly normal. And when we put that all together, it was crazy, you know. And so I needed an Excel spreadsheet to know who was going where. But really, that chaos, I finally learned that that's just what life is. It's just messy. Like, it's never going to be this perfect thing. And that's actually what I love in my work, is that I kind of gravitated to studio away from environment because I just loved the chaos. I loved the personality. I loved the interaction. I loved the relationship, and I could care less about the environment. And so that really informed my work, the chaos of my life, which probably isn't very helpful to anybody seeking balance. But I just don't think it exists. I just think you have seasons in your life, and you can have everything that you want out of your life. You just can't necessarily all have it at once. It's just going to be over a lifetime. You'll get all the things that you really want.
By the way, I think that's incredibly helpful to everybody, because everybody seems to think that everybody that's got more on their plate than they do has a secret to finding balance. And you're right, balance is a complete misnomer. It doesn't exist. And I love the way you put that. It's just life and following the seasons. So if we're going through those seasons in your life, let's go right into the pandemic, and then I'm going to shut up and let Shamara get in a question or two. Let's talk about some of the things you did. How did it start out? The pandemic had to have hit you like it hit all the rest of us with, oh my God, what now?
Sure.
But then you went into other areas to stay afloat and grow.
Right. Well, I think, it's hard to compare, just like anything else in your life, right? It's easy to compare yourself unfavorably or favorably to others. And we're in the West, we're in the Arizona, where the spaces are wide and, social distancing is easy. And I shoot with a 70 to 200 lens, and I'm far away from my clients. And so when the shutdown happened, I think I just freaked out, like, oh my gosh, we were all this time since 2008, we've been saying, just as long as there's not another 2008, right? It's like, oh, well, I can go you one better and give you a 2020. Nobody knew what was going on. There was just, and it was just hard. And then the shutdown, of course, we were shut down for a couple of 3 weeks, but then we found that we could social distance. We were in a state that wasn't completely shut down. And so we just started messaging that, that we shoot with a long lens, we're disinfecting between clients, we're wearing masks, all the things. And then found that the things that we really thought we were competing with, we weren't. We realized what we actually compete with in this business is travel and kids being out of town, like kids being at school. And nobody was traveling and nobody had kids at school. And we do a lot of large families out here. And so people were calling going, hey, my kids are all here. Like, can we do this? What do you think? And so we just made a plan to really social distance, and we had it kind of all figured out. So it ended up working out. But there are places that wasn't even possible, in Europe and Canada and different places where they simply weren't allowed to be open. So it's kind of unfair. I hate to say, we were so smart business wise. I think we are smart, but I think we also got lucky that we were in an area that maybe wasn't quite as shut down as maybe some other places.
It's interesting because depending on the state that you're in, I mean, you're right, it's the state or country. Some places were more shut down than others, but I mean, either way, it was a scary time. And I love how you mentioned you changed your messaging to really communicate that you're disinfecting between services or portrait shoots, social distancing. I mean, whatever state you were in, it was scary. And you pivoted with the times and you made it work. And I mean, you and your team, you all deserve credit for that. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so fast forward to today, and one thing that I would really love to touch on, because not everyone does this and it's so impressive. And we kind of talked about it a little bit, but you're full service, meaning that you help with the installation of the final product, of the finished product, and really communicating to your clients that the end result is not a digital file, but a masterpiece they can hang on their wall. Just very briefly, can you touch on, I guess, what's your process for that to really get them to understand how important it is?
So, well, one of the things that we did to start really communicating that, because we've always been that, but I found that we were still getting a lot of calls, like I would say maybe up to 2013, we were still getting a lot of calls like, do you sell digital files? And I realized obviously the message isn't getting through. So if you've been on my website, which you have, it's very clear, like it's art for your home. That is what we are doing, or albums, period. That's all we're doing. And so just messaging that really, really strong up front, not trying to just show galleries of beautiful images and hoping that we can talk them into it later. It's like, that's in your face from the very beginning. And we speak about that. So our process is, first contact, we're talking about, we're not normal. We work a little different than most photographers. We specialize in a finished product, which is wall art for your home or custom designed albums. And then we just go through our entire process, and we let them know that means we bring it to you, we deliver it, install in your home. And so, sometimes when they're like, well, I don't know if I want that, we're just like, we're aware not everybody needs this level of service, for sure. We know that. So if somebody's saying to us, well, I was just hoping to get some pictures for my holiday cards and just order them on Minted. I'm like, there's 10 girls in your neighborhood with a nice camera that can do that for you. You don't need me for that. I mean, and that's just because it's fair, right? It's like, they don't need me for that. It's overkill.
So Allison, as you're looking at what you're really offering, I mean, I'm reminded of several photographers who we probably share as mutual friends who have lectured and talked about, not everybody is your customer, that not every client is going to fit with the profile. It got me thinking about the confidence level that it took for you to develop and go in the way you did. And that leads me to ask the question about, based on things that you've done, photographers you've worked with, workshops that you've taught, educational moments in your life, what are some of the things that photographers today and videographers too. Actually, it's almost all small business owners need to do to develop and build confidence.
Well, I would like to say that, that I just was born with this, clarity of vision. But I find that really where a lot of this comes from is just getting beat down and not being clear and trying to be. I'm an oldest child people pleaser, card carrying wuss of the first order, and I just want everybody to like me, and I want everybody to be happy, and I have had those same feelings of I feel bad, and all of that, but when you get beat down enough and then you realize the only reason that you're beat down is because you have not communicated what it is that you really want to do and how you want to work. And so then people are pushing you around. It's not their fault. It's your fault. You didn't state what it was that you wanted to do in the first place. And so a lot of these things, in the business that I had prior, I realized that almost all of our policies came out of the mistakes that we made with clients. And so I just realized that we have to be clear about what it is that we're doing. And even if that means that in a way we're doing a reverse sell in a way, like you don't need me for that. And that's not a ploy. That's just being transparent. And Skip, one thing that you just said where you're saying, not every client will fit. That's always kind of bugged me, right? Because I thought, well, I want every client to fit. What I've realized is that I don't like the idea of exclusivity in the way of excluding. I really feel like everyone should be treated the same. And so we have kind of a little thing that I train my employees with, and it's like the Brinks truck concept. So when I'm training somebody new on the phone, when they're talking to clients, I say, look, the easiest way for me to explain this to you is that I want you to pretend as though everybody that calls or anybody that comes to the door or whoever pulled up in a Brinks truck full of cash. And they got 6 guys out there that are with dollies that are going to bring that cash in here, and they want to spend it with us. And so how would you talk to them if that was true? You wouldn't be kind of trying to assess whether they were qualified. Did they have an accent? Are they dressed right? Whatever. You would just be like, we can do this and we can do this. And you would be so excited and so confident, because what better thing could they spend their money on than portraits of their family? And you could tell them about all the ways we could frame it and how we could make it so great for their house. And then they can then tell us, they can then self-select. So we tell them what we do, and we tell them how we do it and how we work, that we are specializing in a finished product, which is wall art for your homes, custom designed albums. And of course, anything that you put on the wall or in an album, you will have a social media file for, but we are not selling printable digital files. But look how we can do it this way, and we can deliver and install, and it's going to be so amazing. And then they can tell us, that's more than what I thought. I don't think I can do it right now. Or can we just do one thing? Or can we just do an album or whatever? Or yes, I want to do all the things. But if we come at it from not a judgment of, well, they had an accent, or they were a walk by, or they found us on a Google search, so those aren't going to be qualified, or that whole idea, we've all been in the Facebook groups, right? Not my client, a pain in the butt, whatever. That if we just approach everybody as though they were driving up in a Brinks truck full of cash, we're going to treat them the very best we can. And we're going to present ourselves the very most confident way we can. And then they can self-select and tell us whether they want us or not.
Wow, you just got me thinking about the way I even asked the question. There's a great line from somebody, I think it's Seth Godin, that says, people don't buy what they need, they buy what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing, and we've all seen it happen. Anybody that's ever bought a car, for example, you went in expecting to buy something, and by the time you left, you added in the upgraded stereo speakers and the leather stitching and whatever else in the interior, and you've upgraded. And I guess I love the way you put that. That's all. It just points out that if you do your marketing and do your information right on the front end, then you can get them excited about, here's what we're going to provide, which they didn't come in necessarily looking for in the very beginning.
because they don't know what they want, especially,
Yep.
if they're new, they wait, now the way the industry is now, they've been trained to want X number of files for X number of dollars. That's the most price sensitive thing there is. How many files am I going to get for how much money? And that is easily comparable across all photographers. So you can just call and shop that all day long. And maybe you like somebody's style over another, but most people can't really tell. I mean, they can tell between good and bad, but they can't tell between good and great. So it's like, we're not in that business. We're in the business of wall art, and we're in the furniture business. We're in the design business. We're not in the disposable imagery business.
I would love to kind of steer the conversation over to branding, although this is all related to branding as far as I'm concerned. But as you're talking, Allison, this just brings to mind so many mistakes that I've made in the past as a photographer, especially when I was starting out over a decade ago. And one of the things that I did, and that many photographers do, is they tend to compete on price as far as who can be the cheapest photographer. And you pair that up with just providing digital images at a cheap price, and it's definitely not a good thing. It's not sustainable. It's I consider it even a branding mistake. And especially if their business brand does not stand out apart from other photographers in their city, in their area. And so I'm curious, what advice do you have for photographers as far as branding their business in such a way that allows them to actually be profitable? What would you say to them?
I would say it's kind of like tying one arm behind your back in a way, I guess, is if you could not talk about price, if you could not run a promo, if those words were stricken from your vocabulary, what would you talk about? Like if you weren't going to run a mini session, or, buy now and get 25 extra holiday cards, or, some other, we're trying to use marketing tactics that have been taught to us by huge corporations that have all kinds of scale. And yet we're running luxury, tiny micro businesses, and you can't use those marketing tactics. Well, you can, and you can just go broke. So if you could not talk about price, and you could not talk about promo, and you could not talk about deal, what would you talk about? And so that's this exercise I gave myself, is that whenever I would go to send an email, or, okay, we need to get some business going, like, what do we need to do? I realized that our best efforts were spent spoiling our existing clients, booking our calendar with our very best clients, calling them, and we have a whole calling program that we do at the beginning of the holiday season, or the end of the school year. And so we book the fall, and we just call all of our besties, text them. I mean, we don't call, nobody answers their phone, texting, email, and just say, you have first dibs on our calendar as a part of the ATJ family. And so if you need a session this year, before we open Allison's calendar up to the public, you have first dibs. So you want to get in, So I'm all about just making the client experience amazing for my clients, and then spoiling them again and again, and giving them first dibs on everything, rather than what's the next group on, how can I get the new clients? And because the new clients come because my existing clients are talking about me, and that's the best marketing there is. So it's like the book, I don't know if you ever read that book, Derek Siever's, that Everything You Want. So good. It'll take like an hour to read it, but he just talks about the best marketing there is just spoil the crap out of your best clients and let them do your marketing for you. And I found that is the way to go. Jeez. Because we all know word of mouth, right, is the best there is. So there's no MailChimp, there's no deal, there's no mini session that I'm going to be able to do that's going to be as good at marketing as my best clients saying, look, it's expensive, right? But I'm telling you, I've never had an experience like that. And so that's the kind of marketing. And I have men saying that to other men, which is,
whoa.
I know it's amazing. So because we make it easy for the dads, so that's what I would say. I don't know if that answers your question, but
absolutely.
From a branding standpoint, it's just how can we make it I think we're sometimes too focused on making the work great, but once you've mastered your craft, we need to master the craft of client experience.
Well, this also fits right in. I don't know if you've ever read Scott Stratton's book on marketing.
What's that called?
On marketing.
Oh, on marketing.
UN,
okay.
sorry.
Oh, on marketing. Oh, yeah, I have it, but I
marketing.
haven't read it yet.
All right. And his tagline is stop marketing and start engaging. And he talks about relationship building being your greatest tool to build the strength into your business and your brand. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. And that's what you're talking about, which leads me right into, let's talk about the Rework for a minute, because you are very focused on creating an educational platform to help photographers raise the bar on their brand and profitability and turning businesses into successful, profit-oriented businesses as opposed to money pits.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did that get started, and where's it going, and how do people get more involved?
Well, I've wanted to do this for 12 years, honestly. I've spoken, taught, and seen the need, seen amazing, talented, and I'm sure you guys see this, like people that have work that just stops your heart in your chest. It's so beautiful, but they're not making any money. They can't support their family. And because I came out of another business, I had owned a business previously and had been successful with that. My intention with this business was if I'm going to do this, it has to support my families, because this wasn't a side hustle for me. This was like, we're all in. And in 2013, my husband came into the business with me. And when we wanted to retire him, I mean, not really retire, but bring him into the business so that we could have the flexibility to live how we want, do what we want. We have a lot of kids. We want to spend time with them. We want to travel, et cetera. So I wanted to be able to help other photographers be able to have that same freedom, because I think portrait photography is one of the best careers there is. And you can do really well and have a really nice life and lifestyle with this business. But that's not really talked about so much. I think we focus on other things. I don't know. So that's kind of where the Rework came, is that I saw that there's no end of technique advice out there. But the Rework is, our tagline is what you want to teach portrait photographers to uniquely brand, profitably price, and confidently sell their best work. And so that's what it's all about. Is we have a course, The Art of Selling Art, and then we have a back-end membership on that. And so we just launched that this last summer, and it's just been awesome to see these people take off and shed some of the preconceived notions they had about, like, well, you can't do it that way. You always have to do it this way, or you have to sell digital files, or you have to always run a promo, or whatever, that there are ways to do this business to where it can be built around how you want to live and around a really amazing clients. And you can have less clients than you ever thought possible, right? You don't have to have a huge high volume. You can have not a ton of clients and really have a great business.
Well, the whole concept of the Rework, I love the way you've positioned it. It's one of those programs that, after a lifetime in this industry and spending so much time with those photographers you described as having stunning work, but they're starving and they're eating macaroni and cheese and ramen noodles long after college. If college even came into it, it's just sad, because they've got the creative passion, but they don't pay attention to their bottom line business.
Right. Or they just feel like it's too hard, or that, right. Because to me, that being creative in the business is as fun as being creative in the work itself. I think it's our business. You can set it up however you want. You can completely spoil your clients and have a creative, artistic experience with the client. It can be so amazing. It doesn't have to be run them through, volume or whatever. Like, you can do this however you want, and be just as creative in the business end as you are in the camera room.
Well, I want to add one more piece to this, and then I'm going to turn it over to Shamira, because we're pretty much out of time, but Shamira's got her favorite last question. we're all three of us are going to be at Imaging USA. Let's take just a minute and talk about the importance of everybody out there and the ability to get that exchange with other photographers, with other artists, with other business owners. I've always pitched that you can't, there's a lot you can learn online. There's a lot you can learn listening to podcasts and watching YouTube, but nothing beats that hands-on training you get at a live conference. And that was taken away from us by COVID in 2020 and through most of 2021. But 2022, that January Imaging USA, what are your thoughts on the importance of people getting to that conference?
Well, it's everything. I mean, PPA, Professional Photographers of America's class act, they have great education. They're so invested in people building sustainable, successful businesses. And some of my best friends and mentors in the industry have come out of that organization, and I can't say enough about it. And it's not even just what you're hearing on the platform or even in the classes, it's also meeting your peers and sharing information and, what's working, what's not working. It's amazing.
Yeah. In fact, for everybody listening, if you're not aware of it, switch over on Mind Your Own Business. You'll find a podcast there with David Trust, who's the CEO of PPA. And Shamir and I had David on, and David talked very specifically about this is going to be a year that they want to help photographers rebuild. So in terms of trying to run a conference, and PPA is a nonprofit, it doesn't mean that they don't want to at least break even when they're doing a convention. But this year they are underwriting everybody's registration costs. They're even underwriting the room cost at the, what hotel is it? Come on, help me.
It's the Harbor Gaylord.
Yeah, the Gaylord. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Gaylord in the National Harbor. They've underwritten the nightly cost on the room rate. So that's also going to help everybody be there. And this is one year where I think kicking off 2022 with the opportunity to recharge your battery and just talk to other photographers and meet other people. And we can all do it in a way that's safe and socially distanced and whatever is going on at the time. But this is going to be a really important conference for everybody to be at.
I agree.
It's going to be amazing, amazing. And, well, it looks like we are just about out of time. Almost out of time. I'm still going to fit in my favorite final question. It's amazing how quickly these episodes go by. So I'm curious, Allison, what advice do you have for photographers who are just starting out with their businesses? What would you tell them would be their first step that they should take?
Oh, so many. Number one, I would just say if you do want to make this your career, that is possible. There are people that you have never heard of that have brilliant careers in this industry. And so if that is your intention, go in with the intention that you are going to build a business that happens to be photography. And then on top of that is to be you, because everybody else is already taken. And so of course, we look at what other people are doing, but try to put on your blinders a little bit and really think about how you see every single time you approach a subject. How do you see it? What is unique to your vision about that particular subject? How do you want to interpret that? And I found that my biggest success is that the less I look around at what everybody else is doing and the more I look inward as to how I really see it, the better things become. When I look outward and compare, that's when I stumble.
Oh, that's so great.
Great answer.
And that applies to photographers who maybe they're just starting out or maybe they've been doing it for years. And,
100%.
It's a constant process trying to steer our businesses in the direction that they need to go. So that is absolutely perfect advice. Oh my goodness. And, I do want to make sure our listeners know where they can find you online. Where should they check you out?
Well, I have the Rework podcast, the Rework with Allison Tyler Jones, and that drops weekly on Thursdays, and that's all geared again to portrait photographers and business. And then I'm on Instagram at my business at ATJ Photo is on Instagram. And then do.the.rework is the Instagram for the rework, and dotherework.com is the website. So that's all the places.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to include those in the show notes so that our listeners can check you out. And Skip, I always want to make sure to ask, where can folks find you?
And I always have the same answer. Everything I write is at skipcohenuniversity.com, usually posting just about every day, sometimes several times in one day, depending on what crazy things are going on in our industry. And my email is skip@mei and the number 500.com. And Shamira and I always encourage you, encourage you to get back to us. Let us know if you've got any thoughts on topics, on guests you'd like us to have on the show. And on Facebook and Twitter, it's Skip Cohen, not particularly creative, just easy to find. And Shamira, I was asked the same question, where they go to find you.
Yes. They can send me an email at shamira@photofocus.com. That is my first name, CHAMIRA @photofocus.com. We love getting ideas, questions, feedback, as Skip mentioned, because it absolutely shapes how we move forward with the show, especially as we move into 2022. And Allison, thank you again. This was just awesome. We really appreciate you just sharing your experiences with us.
Well, it was an honor to be here. I think you've got such a great thing going, and I can't wait to see you in January at Imaging.
Absolutely.
Well, you have shared so much great insight, and I'm just looking forward to doing our program together with you and 3 other guests who we're not going to announce yet.
Secret.
And just being able to share ideas with everybody, to help everybody start to make 2022 their best year ever. And if you're listening to this podcast now, everybody, there were a lot of good ideas that came out of this today to help finish off 2021 with one of the best years ever, because there is a renewed sense of family in this country, and family portraiture is going to be a very hot item through this holiday season.
Oh, 100%. The roaring 20s. Let's go.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Oh, and we want to thank our listeners for joining us as well. Please tell your friends about this podcast, especially if they have the burning desire to improve their photography business. We look forward to having you all with us next time on the Mind Your Own Business podcast, brought to you by Photofocus and Skip Cohen University.